And I think what makes a great villain is when they have not only empathy and relatability, but a character flaw that we can also relate to. Tragic villains make for the best empathetic and relatable villains. For example, one of the greatest cinematic villains ever created, Darth Vader. The thing about Darth Vader is that he was already, you know, a really great villain. He didn't really become the empathetic villain until like later in the sequels and the prequels, because now we were seeing his backstory and why he was the way he was, and how he grew up, and how he went from young Anakin Skywalker to Darth Vader. And I always thought that the further we got along or the further we went back into Darth Vader's arc, the more interesting he became. So by the time he became Darth Vader and went fully into the dark side, we had earned that. We had been on that journey with him. We saw his highs and his lows. We saw his gains and his losses, and why he felt he needed to go to the dark side.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think Darth Vader probably wasn't that empathetic of a villain until the prequels came out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, especially the first film, because you don't know much about Darth Vader. But that kind of makes him scarier, since he is just this imposing, kind of mysterious, who's under the helmet type of, you know, character.
Right.
And then, of course, in Empire, you find out he's Luke's father, and that kind of ends that movie on a mystery, you know, because you're like, is that true? And then we find out a little bit more about his backstory in Return of the Jedi, but we don't really learn about everything until, you know, the prequels. And You're right, you know, then he does become somewhat of a sympathetic villain. It's interesting to kind of try to watch those movies from episode 1 through episode 6, and you know, Darth Vader is almost a different character, even though there's nothing different about him in the original movies.
Right.
You're just seeing him differently.
You're seeing it from a different perspective. Yeah.
I was doing a little research before this episode. I was looking up movie villains for our upcoming draft time, and every list I looked at, every single list, Darth Vader was number 1. Greatest movie villain of all time, pretty much. I mean, and it's hard to disagree. He is an excellent villain.
You know, the thing that makes him interesting, the tragedy that he experienced, and how he wasn't always a bad guy. He didn't always do these despicable things. He was enticed by the dark side, and the dark side played on his vulnerability. Like he's one of the most vulnerable villains ever. He's very impulsive. He's a hothead.
Right.
Even though he's so powerful, he'll never be able to beat Obi-Wan unless, you know, he surrendered in A New Hope.
Mm-hmm.
So and that was because he was impulsive and so hot-headed that, you know, he never really thought straight, especially when it came to fighting Obi-Wan, because, you know, that was his mentor, and their relationship is so complex. So that is his downfall. And I think what makes a great villain is when they have not only empathy and relatability, but a character flaw that we can also relate to. And for Darth Vader, it was his hot-headedness.
Sure. Yeah.